can try and win championships, and that's what it's all about. When you look from the outside and you watch this team, I know we're going to have a real good, solid hockey team this year.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host right here, Eric Wilson. The New York Rangers made a blockbuster trade this week for Vladimir Tarasenko, but are they done, or do they have more in store? Could Chris Drury potentially go ahead and make another trade before the deadline? It's possible, but it's not going to be easy considering the Rangers and their teensy-weensy amount of cap space still left. It's going to be difficult, but there is an opportunity here, and there are some rumors speculating that they could be making a trade real soon. In particular, they could be trading a player away. Vitali Kravtsov has reportedly requested a trade. The Rangers had already made him available for trade, but now he's officially formally requested it after being a healthy scratch recently this week. So Vitali Kravtsov likely on the move before the deadline. What will the Rangers try to do to retain some, to bring in some talent to replace Vitali Kravtsov? That's the question that we want to answer in today's video. Make sure to like if you do enjoy today's video, though, and comment your thoughts down below, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. But without further ado, Eric, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, the news has just recently broke about Kravtsov. Obviously, it's disappointing, but at this point, I'm just ready for this storyline to end. Let's just ship him off. He's a little too problematic. Doesn't really contribute that much, and let's just hopefully get a nice depth player to help us on this playoff run coming up.
Yeah, we discussed it the other day following the Vladimir Tarasenko trade when we were reacting to it here on the channel. I was also looking at other rumors, so what some of these reporters on Twitter were saying, and a few of them were saying that they heard the Rangers aren't necessarily done. They could be looking to add more depth to their fourth line. And I think now the dots are starting to connect, right? You have Vitali Kravtsov requesting a trade. You have the Rangers moving away from Vitali Kravtsov, not playing him as much. And I think this could indicate that the Rangers are, in fact, looking for a way to upgrade some of their depth on their offensive lines. And Vitali Kravtsov might be the key to getting that done. Now, he's playing on a one-year, $875,000 contract, and the Rangers only have a projected cap space of $366,000 left. So not a whole lot of money there, but shipping off Vitali Kravtsov for someone at about an equal contract value, maybe a little bit more, and the other team retains 25% of it, whatever the case might be, there is an avenue here where the Rangers could find someone, bring in some extra talent on that fourth line, and really add some depth to bolster this roster and get ready for the postseason. But Eric, let's give our thoughts on Vitali Kravtsov. Before we dive into who the Rangers could potentially trade for, Vitali Kravtsov likely on his way out again, requesting another trade from the Rangers. I know he's been a massive disappointment for you, for all Rangers fans, for myself. He's just been really disappointing. Never reached his potential with the New York Rangers. So what are your thoughts on Vitali Kravtsov as his time with New York seemingly comes to an end?
I mean, as I mentioned, he's been like one of the more frustrating players that I've watched as my time as a Rangers fan. But, you know, a big thing that you mentioned is he does have a lot of potential, and he's looked good out there on the ice every once in a while, but he's never exactly contributed all too much. So when it comes to like us going to trade him and what other teams might see in him, hopefully whoever he goes to realizes that he has this potential, and we can hopefully get like a pretty decent package in return. You know, obviously with the cap space, as you mentioned, we're not going to be able to pick up any more big name players like Timo Meier, Brock Besser, or Max Domi. So it's a little unfortunate that a player with so much potential, we're really going to get like a fourth liner in return, but that's really just what we need right now. And hopefully we can maybe even get like a draft pick or two for him. So yeah, a little frustrating, but let's just make the most out of what we can get from him.
Yeah, and just a reminder for all Rangers fans watching, the trade deadline is on March 3rd, so it's slowly creeping up here, just a few weeks away. It's unbelievable that we're this deep into 2023 already a month and a half into the year. Where is the time going? But March 3rd, right around the corner, the trade deadline almost here. And in case it wasn't clear, Vitali Kravtsov was a healthy scratch in the Rangers' huge, awesome win over Carolina on Saturday. Shout out Artemi Panarin. The bread man wants his bread back. 4 goals in that game. Unbelievable performance. Eric, real quick, what were your thoughts on that game and that Artemi Panarin performance?
I mean, obviously it was incredible. Everyone pretty much stepped up. Panarin, you know, the number one star right there, 4 goals. And I'm pretty sure he also had an assist. So a 5.9 from him. Halak just came out of nowhere, became Jesus Christ on the ice. And he's been 7-0 in his last 7 starts. So like, when did that happen? When did he just become like starter level goaltending? But no, I think it was a really good win. Obviously pretty dominant statement game right there against Carolina, who's like number 2 in the league. So just to see the Rangers go out there and just completely obliterate them, it's like, we're not messing around. We're going to have a deep run because we're probably going to encounter them in the playoffs at some point.
Yeah, all the stars are heating up right now for the Rangers following that Vladimir Tarasenko trade, which we called the spark plug the other day. So that really just sparked something for the momentum for the New York Rangers. And I think that's shining through right here. So the Rangers, again, playing really good hockey right now, but attempting to move on from Vitali Kravtsov and potentially make another trade before the deadline. Eric, who are some of these players that you might be targeting? Now, I'm going to throw one name out there that I know Rangers fans are going to like to hear, and that's Tyler Mott. Now, I know there was a lot of Rangers fans who were very disappointed when the Rangers didn't retain Tyler Mott. They were asking for the Rangers to bring him back. There could be an opportunity here for them to potentially bring him back. He's kind of like a fan favorite with the Rangers. You mentioned it before we started recording, Eric. Is kind of a player that would have done what we wanted Sammy Blais to do, but Sammy Blais was unable to do. Obviously, now Sammy Blais traded away, but Tyler Mott could be a target here. I would suppose that the Rangers, familiar face, bring back for the postseason run. I think that could make a lot of sense, but Eric, what are your thoughts on potentially bringing back Tyler Mott, and who are some other names that the Rangers could be looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Mott, I'd be pretty open to it, bringing him back. His tenure with the Rangers, while it wasn't incredibly long, it was pretty effective and pretty well. He was a big part of the playoff run that we had recently. And while he might not be the biggest point producer and contribute that much offensively, he's like a key role player that just fits perfectly on that fourth line. He's really good at killing penalties. He doesn't take that many penalties, and he's just like a small grinder player who will pretty much just play defense and keep the other team from scoring when he's on the ice. And, I remember when we first acquired Sammy Blais and we weren't able to keep Mott, I was like, it's whatever, because, Sammy Blais is a similar player. And obviously with the injury and then the lack of goals and then all that stuff, there's kind of just exposed how much we really needed Tyler Mott. So if the Rangers were to bring him back, I don't think there's many Rangers fans that would complain. He's pretty much like the perfect role player that we need on that fourth line right now. And then, besides him, a couple other names, if we want to talk like a little more offensively with experience, I know one name that I have right here is Nick Bonino. Obviously, he won back-to-back Stanley Cups with Pittsburgh. And so, like, we talk about guys like Tarasenko who have won a Stanley Cup and how much that means in hockey, bringing that playoff experience and what it really takes to make it all the way there. He's perfect. He's a little bit older, definitely like out of his prime by this point. But in this season, in 51 games played, has 9 goals, 9 assists for 18 points. So he's not going to come out there and be the greatest goal scorer on the team, but he's kind of similar to Tyler Mott, where he's great at killing penalties and he can pretty much just use his big body to get around players and stop other players from scoring on us.
Yeah, and I like the sound of that. Use his big body to prevent other players from scoring on us. That sounds pretty solid to me. So, Eric, where do you think that a guy like Nick Bonino ends up playing? I would assume probably on the fourth line. What do you think his impact can be down on that fourth line, though?
Well, a big thing that Bonino would contribute is the fact that he currently playing on a wing position right now over there on the Sharks, but he also has great experience with center. So, like, you look at our current line combination where we got Barclay Goodrow, Jake Leschyshyn, and Julien Gauthier down there on the fourth line. He could really go in and replace pretty much any player there. It would probably be center because you look at the way that our team has been so far this season. We really haven't had a solid fourth line center. Obviously, Leschyshyn has been doing it recently, but there's always room for improvement with that position right there. There's been a lot of different guys rotating in and out of that fourth line center spot. And I think Bonino, a guy who can contribute offensively, is proven to contribute defensively and bring Stanley Cup winning experience. I think it'd be a perfect fourth line center to move forward for the rest of the season. And plus, you look at Nick Bonino's contract. He's 1 year, $2.05 million. So it's a little expensive with the current cap space we have, and then moving Kravtsov's contract, assuming that's what the trade is. We would have to work with some numbers, maybe have them retain a little bit of salary, maybe throw in another player or something, but he's pretty cheap relatively for what he would bring to the team.
Yeah, and I think that cap hit is a little high. Might be kind of tough for the Rangers to acquire a player at a $2 million cap hit. But keep in mind, they would be clearing about $875,000 from trading away Kravtsov in this deal. Plus, if the other team retains half of the salary, Bonino is really being acquired on a $1 million salary from the Sharks. So it's possible, but it does sound like it would be difficult to make this one happen. But let's throw out another name that might be a little bit more realistic based on the price, Eric. Patrick Brown, 36 games played, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points, playing center for the Flyers. What are your thoughts on him? How could he fit in with the Rangers?
I mean, I think he's a pretty similar player to Nick Bonino. Obviously, kind of like less stats offensively, only 6 points so far this season, compared to Bonino's 18. But he's kind of like the same thing where he can win faceoffs, he can play pretty decently defensively, and he lacks a little bit of that playoff experience that the Rangers would really look for. But then you look at his cap hit, 1 year, 750K. So just simply by moving Kravtsov's contract, we can take in like his entire contract. So he's definitely a lot cheaper, kind of similar, just less experience, not as effective, but he's like like kind of the same thing where you can just fit right there onto that fourth line, the position that has kind of just been a little controversial and confusing so far this season. And I think he could fit in pretty decently at a cheaper cost.
Yeah, much cheaper cost again, 750,000 for Patrick Brown. Definitely more affordable than Nick Bonino. But now there's one other player that we have listed here, Eric, who's actually the most expensive at all with a 1 year, $2.5 million deal. But that's Nick Ritchie. 50 games played, 9 goals, 12 assists, 21 total points. So the highest point scorer out of these three guys, most productive player, but also the most expensive player. Eric, Nick Ritchie, left wing on Arizona. What are your thoughts on him? And do you think that he's a realistic option for the Rangers?
I think it's a realistic option. Out of all the players we're discussing today, though, he probably might be the least realistic for the Rangers to go out and acquire right now. Him playing left wing, it's kind of already locked up a little bit. We got Barclay Goodrow and Julian Gauthier, who are pretty good. The only reason why we would kind of need him is if Kravtsov is the player that we move to acquire him, we then have that opening on the wing right there. So someone would have to slide up the lines, probably Barclay Goodrow or Nick Ritchie himself. But he is a little bit expensive, the $2.5 million cap here right there. So we'd have to work some numbers right there in order to acquire him. But the most important thing when you look at a player like him is two things. One, we need a winger to replace Kravtsov. We can't just take a center and hopefully just like pray that he's good on that side of the ice. And he has a little bit of playoff experience too. He's made some deep runs throughout his career. And as we mentioned earlier with Nick Bonino, that is extremely important for making a deep playoff run yourself.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I think that's something that the Rangers definitely prioritize when trading for a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko. They wanted to get someone with postseason experience, and I think that's probably going to be their MO when they make a trade for whoever they make a trade for on that fourth line. They're going to want some experience down there, someone who's ready for the postseason, not some young guy who's going to be a deer in the headlights once he gets there. So I think that a lot of these names make a lot of sense for the Rangers for that reason alone. But Eric, I'm going to throw in some other names, probably some higher end names, a little bit unlikely for the Rangers to acquire these guys, but who knows? Maybe the Rangers want to double dip on that blockbuster deal, make another splash here before the trade deadline. Timo Meier, Brock Boeser, Max Domi. These are all names that we've discussed on this channel before. Thought they could be good fits for the Rangers, but probably out of the Rangers' price range at this juncture. However, you never know depending on how they decide to negotiate the contracts, the cap hits. I guess there's a possibility there. However, it's going to take Vitali Kravtsov and probably then a little bit extra to acquire any one of those guys. But what are your thoughts on those three players that I mentioned? And do you think that any of them could realistically be traded to the Rangers before the deadline?
I mean, obviously, they're all three great players right there. I think out of all of them, the most realistic one would probably be Max Domi. He's the cheapest, but although he's not the best out of the three right there, Timo Meier, Brock Boeser, I'm pretty sure they're just off the table right now. Earlier today, I was taking a look at a NHL trade bait board, and Timo Meier was like ranked number one, like player to watch be moved at the trade deadline this season. So with a lot of teams going in on these players, the asking price is going to be a lot higher, which is why I really like the fact that the Rangers went and acquired Tarasenko as early as they did, being the first team to like make a splash at the deadline. Because now you look at these star players who are going to be moved, the Rangers pretty much set the standard for how expensive things are going to be. And looking at the Tarasenko trade, the amount that we gave away, although not the craziest, I don't know if we have enough assets to do it a second or even like a third time. So it'd be cool to see Max Domi on the team. He's a player that I really like, but I don't really think it's that realistic. If the Rangers are going to make a second trade at this deadline, it's most likely going to be for a smaller name player like the couple of guys that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I do want to just play devil's advocate here, play with the fire. throw one last name out there before we wrap this up, a potential big name trade, a guy who really wanted to get traded to the Rangers before the Vladimir Tarasenko trade. I see you smirking. You know who I'm about to say. Big Daddy Kane, Patrick Kane. You think there's any possibility that it happens, Eric?
So I'm gonna say no. However, we've come to learn that Chris Drury practices the dark arts, and he might pull off some more witchcraft and somehow make it happen. Honestly, for any of these names, but not realistically, Patrick Kane most likely. I probably won't even get moved at this trade deadline anymore. If he's going to go anywhere, it's going to be like Dallas or another team out there. He even said it himself, like he's disappointed the Rangers chose Tarasenko over him. But unfortunately, Patrick Kane, the world does not revolve around you, and you might be stuck in Chicago for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him making some comments about maybe he could expand his his list of teams that he'd be willing to be traded to. But then he said, what's the point of the no trade clause at that point? Then he might as well just get traded wherever. So it sounds like he's not eager to just get moved for any reason. He wants to go to a team that he wants to go to, and that team sounds like it was the Rangers. However, Rangers went with Vladimir Tarasenko instead. I guess, you never know with Chris Drury. Maybe he pulls it off somehow, gives up Kravtsov and a few first-round picks, and somehow makes the Blackhawks retain 75% of the salary. I don't even know if that would be something that the Rangers could even afford. That's a big salary we're talking about. It's probably not.
I think 50% is the max able to retain.
Yeah, the Rangers would have to clear so much cap space. I don't even think that it's remotely possible at this point. But you never know. Thought I'd throw it out there. Keep the dream alive for you Rangers fans that are just so desperate to see Drury make another degenerate trade.
It's funny to just discuss it, and then later on tonight, we get to read all the angry comments calling us stupid.
It'll be a great time. I can't wait for people to start making fun of my big nose, my hair, whatever the case might be, But hey, man, if we wake up tomorrow morning and I'm at lunch and you call me again and you're like, it's happened, well, then I'll be really happy. I'll rush home and we will make the video and we will talk about Kane to the Rangers. But that's not going to happen. But we could sit here and continue to dream. Anyway, that pretty much wraps this one up. Eric, unless you have any last-minute thoughts on the Rangers potentially making one last trade before the deadline?
I'm tired of Kravtsov. Just get him out of here. I don't even care like who or what. Even if we just get like draft picks in return. I'm like, look at the lines right now. They're beautiful, like Kreider, Zibanejad, Tarasenko, Panarin, Trocheck, VC, the kid line, and then Gaudreau, Leschyshyn, and Gauthier. Like that might just be enough. Like we don't even need anyone.
It probably is enough. It wouldn't hurt to add in a little bit extra talent, but what the Rangers have right now, very solid. Chris Drury and Gerard Gallant have done a phenomenal job getting this team into shape for the postseason, especially considering that Vladimir Tarasenko trade. However, I do think that they ship off Vitali Kravtsov. I think there will be a team out there that looks at his potential and says, you know what, let's take a flyer. Let's take a chance on this guy and see what we can get out of him. There is potential to be drawn from there. So I think the Rangers will move Kravtsov before the deadline, but we'll see what they get in return. However, I don't think that we should have our expectations set too high for the return on Kravtsov. But that pretty much wraps this one up. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the topic down below. We'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers.
He
shoots. He scores. Rangers.